Thank you all so much. I just feel so touched. Friends who have come to see me for the second time. Two people who endorsed my book and wrote blurbs, Larry Kushner and Ben Fong Torres. A woman in my writing group who I've never met. We've been meeting weekly since the beginning of COVID, women all over the world. And her dad and his partner are here, and they brought me flowers. I haven't even met her in person yet, so very, very sweet. This is a book about resilience. How many people here have dealt with an illness ever? A loss? A big disappointment, like end of a relationship or end of a job? Yeah. You too? Even you. So I have two, and there is a temptation when things are really horrific to just hide, to just go inside yourself, to just burrow inside and to ask questions like, why me? This doesn't serve, and I learned this over time. Here's what I'm going to do in the brief time we have together today. I'm going to start out by reading the first couple of pages of the book, then we'll talk a little bit more, and then I'll read another little excerpt, talk a little more. By then you'll be ready for the ice cream, right? So then you'll go have ice cream. Deal? Good. All right. As I step into the crosswalk, there's a sudden deafening sound. An explosion, maybe? Then I'm airborne, thrown onto the hood of a car. What the hell? I silently scream to the universe, or God, or no one. Seriously? All I can hear is an ear-splitting cacophony. All I feel is wild, uncontrolled movement. Stop the car, stop the car. The car is catapulted down North San Pedro Road, my head banging against its windshield. I slip off the hood onto the ground, alive. I can't move, can't speak. I lift my head and blink my eyes a few times. Things come into focus. To my right, people crowd the sidewalk, staring at me with their mouths open in horror, like in Munch's painting. I hear someone yelling, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" I slowly turn my head in the direction of the sound, but see nameless faces. Cars are turned in different directions. People are running toward me. I'm lying splayed in the middle of the street and feel my short cotton print dress hiked up, naked thighs on display, like that matters. I keep blinking, but the scene doesn't change. A white pickup truck stops in the middle of the street. A man wearing an Oakland A's jersey jumps out and runs toward me. "You're fine," he says. "You'll be fine." A woman is yelling at him to stop talking to me. Why is she angry with him? He says, "I'm fine." Maybe he's right. I don't see any blood, but how could I be fine? Horns blare. I think that's my friend's teenaged son on the other side of the street. "Is that Joanne?" I hear him ask, panicked. He gets back into his mother's car and they drive off. Maybe this is a dream. Janet, who teaches exercise classes at the Jewish Community Center where I work, runs toward me in slow motion. A police officer hands her my purse. He's holding my orange and black shoes. She's calm, trained for emergencies, and crouches down next to me. Pulling my cell phone out of the purse, she says, "We must call Fred, my husband." I hear my voice slowly dictating his number. "Joanne's okay, but she's been in an accident," she says, her voice measured, composed. Still on the street, right in front of the JCC and our beloved synagogue, I reach for the phone. "Meet me at the hospital." The phone falls to the ground. The cop and Janet start to spin, or am I spinning? A taste of bile is sour in my throat. I drop my head. Sirens are wailing. The police officer is trying to get me to stand up. "No, don't!" Shouldn't he leave me here until the paramedics come? Now there's pain, and it's blinding. Before, there was no pain. I gesture toward my right side. Didn't know that pain can literally make you see stars. Someone else arrives, a paramedic, kind face. We lock eyes. I'm on a gurney being loaded into the back of an ambulance. I hold on to his gaze like a lifeline. But a woman is screaming. "It's totaled," she yells. "I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't believe this happened." Stop it. Is she the person who was driving the car that hit me? Can't see her. Why is she in this ambulance? Make her stop. I silently beg the paramedic with deep-set eyes. He gives me a shot of something and I'm slipping. More nausea, but less pain. I exhale. The short drive is a blur. Sounds, colors, helpless. As we pull up at the emergency room entrance, I see Fred's face, his brow furrowed, the color gone from his cheeks. He's here. I'm not alone. I'm sorry, I whisper, aware, even in my altered state, that the phone call he just received was his greatest nightmare. For any spouse, receiving a phone call like that would be horrendous. For Fred, I felt like this was much, much worse because his parents were killed in a car accident when he was 7, both of them. And you can imagine how that changed his life. So the thought that I was bringing him this kind of pain and worry, it was unthinkable. And yet, at the beginning, you're in shock. You're just trying to survive, right? Survival is the first and only thing on my mind. The beginning of chapter 2 is kind of a foreshadowing of the rest of the book, so I'll just share this one paragraph. Being hit by a car is not my first blow, although it's probably the most literal, and it won't be my last. But it will be a catalyst for me, a sudden graphic stop to my constantly in motion existence, my need to produce and achieve to feel worthy of love, my need to control everything because I've believed that it would make me safer. It will be the test that finally teaches me that my needs are masks and that control is an illusion. I've had plenty of opportunities, losses, hard ones, to learn to let go, but I grieved my losses and went right back to my old ways. The accident has stripped me, made me totally dependent on others, put cracks in my bones, and revealed cracks in my armor. I can't go back to my old ways, not easily anyway. Over time and through a series of other physical and emotional challenges, I will discover that losing control can be the best way to truly gain it. Letting go means letting in light, revealing my real power, and finally feeling that deep sense of peace that I had been so desperate to find. So what helped me along the way? It turns out, and I wish my mom were alive so that I could thank her for these adages that she used to say over and over again, not if your mother said these little kinds of things over and over again, like this too shall pass. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Or count your blessings. Those 3 things were enormously helpful for me. This too shall pass. I just give this to you as a little gift. Pack it away, put it in your pocket. Whatever's going on, however depressed you're feeling, I've been there. However much grief you're feeling, I've really, really been there. I lost my mother and sister in a 5-month period and my brother just a couple of years later. Whatever is going on, it feels like forever. When you're in physical pain, right, it feels like forever. And if you can tell yourself, this too shall pass, maybe you don't have to say the shall part, maybe you can just say this is a moment, and then there will be another moment. And it might be worse or it might be better, but it'll be different. So I share that with you. Counting your blessings, it's like the best thing you can possibly do. Very hard to feel sorry for yourself, to be bummed out, and be grateful at the exact same time. So if you're lying there in bed at night and you're feeling like you're dreading what's coming up, you can tell your mind what to do. You can program your mind to some degree, and you can say, but I have this, 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 this. So throughout this, what did I know that I had? First and foremost, my husband, who was by my side. I'm extremely lucky. Thank you. Definitely my children, my community, my dear, dear friends who showed up time and again, who brought food, who walked our dog, who ordered a seat for the shower, or all of the different things that I suddenly found myself in this world needing that I had never needed before. So those were blessings. And then the other thing that was super helpful was reiterating for myself again and again what I knew to be true at that moment. So often we spin out, oh my God, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. I mean, spoiler alert, once I got better from everything that happened in the accident, I received a cancer diagnosis, and I'm fine. And so many of us are walking around fine, right? My mind began to spin as one's mind would, imagining myself in chemo, imagining myself feeling really sick, losing my hair, all of it. And then, because I had been doing all this work for the previous couple of years, I said, no, wait a minute, what do I know? What I know is that I'm having surgery. I know that there was a malignancy, and now I'm going to have surgery. That's all I know, so that's what I should focus on. I should not get carried away thinking about things that might not be. And I was one of the fortunate ones. It turned out that the surgery took care of it. So that worry would have been completely unnecessary and needless. We all know what our issues are, right? Maybe you don't yet, but you get to a certain point, a certain stage in life where you know, right? I am irritable when I'm unhappy, or I am judgmental, or I get jealous of other people, or I feel like I'm missing out. That was a big one for me, baby of the family, so my sister and brother were a lot older than me, and I was like, what about me? Yes, I see, you can relate. So I think part of what happened to me is I ran right back into all my issues because I couldn't, you know, sometimes we keep busy in order to not think or in order to not feel. And I was a person in constant motion, always. Truth is, I still am. I'm really working on it, but something has shifted where now I actually can do yoga and go for a hike on a given day. I can go out to lunch with a friend and then come home and sit and read a novel for a few minutes before falling asleep, because that's inevitably what happens. And to illustrate that, a little reading. I don't know what to do with myself. Lying here in bed hour after hour, the silence is torturous. If I can't do things, my mind starts to spin out. Keeping busy has always been my default to avoid an emotional downward spiral. Now, with nothing to do, I keep replaying the accident, the crash that sounds like an explosion, the terror of being on top of a moving vehicle, lying in the street in shock. This isn't new. Quiet has always been my enemy. I was at a Buddhist meditation session in Chicago during college, squirming, aware of every passing second, suppressing the urge to run out the door. Eastern religion sounded so good, but the silence was unbearable. I'm a doer, always busy. I fill time by getting things done, but now I couldn't get things done if I wanted to. Don't have the strength. Can't concentrate. If I could, I would send thank you notes, like I did after Mom died, and after Raina died, and after Bob died. Those back-to-back losses, especially Mom's and Raina's, only 5 months apart, felt like Groundhog Day. Write the eulogy, place the obituary, deal with the mortuary, schedule the funeral, repeat. There were so many tasks that had to get done, and it didn't matter what kind of shape I was in. I just handled it. The grief could wait. It was always right there, bottled up just long enough to give everyone else space to have their reactions. The grief would explode in moments when I least expected it. Driving in the car, or trying to go back to work too soon. A wave would reduce me to a quaking, crumbling, wailing shell of a human at the mercy of sobs coming from a place so deep I thought they might never end. And I'd close my office door for a chance to catch my breath. Months had passed, yet the grief was still debilitating. And I was embarrassed because it showed, felt weak. Food and sleep felt like the needs of a former self, the self who knew her place in the world. Cumulative loss can turn you into a shell of yourself. But I kept moving. Choose life, Jewish tradition tells us, and I figured that the best way to cope was to fulfill my responsibilities to the family and at work to the best of my ability. If I collapsed at the end of the day, leaving Fred to pick up the pieces, so be it. Day after day, I stood up, showed up, stepped up, and to the world, I was nothing short of remarkable, just how I liked it. Mom was 92, and then it goes on. I'm not going to keep reading there, but you get the basic point. I learned a lot, and I want to share with you some lessons that I learned through this experience which now it's 12 years ago. Is it 12 years ago? It's going to be 12 years in October. That's crazy. I typed them up and I put them on the inside of the medicine cabinet because, every time I open the medicine cabinet, there they are. And I knew that I would forget because New Year's resolutions or just things that you want to work on. I want to stop this behavior. It's not serving me. It's not getting me anywhere, but then you just do it anyway. So I had this list. So here's my list. I don't need to rush through life. I'm more comfortable and feel safer at an adjusted pace. It is not just about how much I accomplish in a day, but how I do what I do that matters. I never regret taking time to spread joy. I'm obsessed with dogs and children. Those of you who know me well know that. And taking a walk with me can sometimes be really annoying because I have to stop and have a relationship with every single dog. It's killing me. There was an enormous dog out there before, and I did not go say hello. Okay, just say it. I must accept that people are different than me, with varying needs for intimacy and privacy. This was a big one. I think this is pretty universal. We tend to think that other people must be thinking the way we're thinking. Other people must react the way we react. And for me, when someone I know is sick or injured or has experienced a loss, it is very natural for me to go. Like a magnet, I am drawn because I feel like I might be able to help in some small way. Not everybody feels that way. And I came to learn that some of the people I really love and treasure didn't show up for me, and I had to be okay with that. And that was a real process of understanding that not everyone shows up in the way that you might like them to or in the way that you do. But there are people who showed up, and that meant the world. Well, I don't want to be known as the woman who had that terrible accident. I don't mind being known as the woman whose positive attitude carried her through. The thought of writing a book, I'd always kind of thought somewhere in my life when I was older, and the fantasy was I'd be like in a beach house looking out over the cliffs and the waves coming in, and I would write some book. After all of this and a series of other things that happened that are all in the book over the next couple of years, I was like, I think this is the book I'm supposed to write. But I was in rock and roll radio, and I've got these great stories. Ben will attest to the kinds of things and Fred as well, the kinds of things we lived through being in rock and roll radio in San Francisco in the 70s. So bit by bit, I tried to weave some of that in, but it became clear that the book I was going to write was going to be what I learned, because if it can help one person to get through a challenge, then I will have achieved everything. And finally, good health is neither a given nor a right. When we feel good, we take it for granted. At any age, when we feel lousy, we realize what a miracle it is to not be in pain. Each pain-free moment in our lives is an amazing miracle, and my job, maybe all of our jobs, is to continue to feel gratitude and carefully consider what I'm going to do, maybe what you're going to do with the precious time that we have. So I will leave you with, well, first of all, you can ask questions. Something else. Connecting the dots between painful moments from my past is sparking new insights. Being in constant motion has always been a distraction, a way of not letting my guard down, of appearing to be on top of everything, of not confronting my sadness and disappointment. Now that my bones have healed, my tendency is to pick up the pace once again and go right back into overdrive. Yet my stamina hasn't fully returned. I begin to view my diminished energy as a gift that I should take advantage of. It forces me to slow down, which is something I ordinarily fight. I start to pay attention to what's happening around me, to how I feel at any given moment, and to what my options are, rather than thinking that my only choice is to barrel through. So thanks so much for listening. Does anyone have any questions? Rebecca?
First of all, congratulations. It's such a gift to get to hear your stories. I am very curious. So for others who may be similarly unable to sit still and stop doing, what is the way to learn these lessons without going through such a tragic, difficult experience? Like how can we attempt to learn that without the pain and trauma?
Absolutely. So getting a lot accomplished and being busy isn't by itself a bad thing. You probably know when it tips. I think I knew, I didn't necessarily admit it to myself, but when it tipped into the I'm being manic or I am really like not stopping. So it's about, for me, and maybe for you, listening to yourself more closely and not defaulting to old behaviors, but saying, like when you're tired, I never knew when I was tired. I was like a child who would get cranky and then, hit the wall like I was overtired. I had two settings on and off. And so it's been a process of tuning in to what do I really want to do right now? What right now is going to feel good? Is this thing that I feel like I just want to check it off the list? Can I do it later? Could I do it tomorrow? Does it really matter if I don't do it at all? And often the answer is not what you would have thought. The answer is, it's just fine. Reading in the middle of a Thursday afternoon is not a bad thing. Like I was ashamed of myself for that was so self-indulgent. Maybe if I was reading something that I was studying, I could justify it, but a novel? And now I've let all that go. So do not get hit by a car. Do not recommend it. Definitely not fun. Wendy?
Can you tell the anecdote about Annie Lamott?
Oh, yes. So I have some extraordinary people who wrote blurbs for me, two of whom are here today. And, but in the back of my mind, I always said, the brass ring for me for this book would be getting an endorsement by Anne Lamott. Because I think I'm irreverent in some of the same ways that she is. She writes memoir, but also fiction. We have a lot in common. We're exactly the same age. We love dogs and hiking and live in Marin County and are both into interfaith kinds of work. So I got her personal email address and wrote this lovely pitch letter about how her son wrestled for this high school when my son was wrestling for this high school, and I saw her in the gym and we chatted. We didn't exactly chat, but... And great pitch letter, and she wrote back immediately and said, I'm so sorry. First of all, congratulations, what an achievement, yay, you finished a book, wonderful, isn't it amazing to write a memoir? I'm so sorry, but for so many reasons, I can't read your book. Okay. So a couple months later, I wrote back and I said, so I'm wondering if I can just send you my book, just so that, because I think you're gonna like it. I really think you're gonna like it. And she wrote back and said, I'm on deadline right now for my book, and I'm so sorry, but I just wouldn't have time to read it. And I did that thing that, there's this word chutzpah, which is like a nice way of saying nerve, maybe. But it's like persistence sometimes pays off. And I wrote back a third time and I said, okay, just to be clear, I'm not sending it now, but later, when the book is published, can I just send you a copy? And she went, all right, send me the first 40 pages. So I sent her the first 40 pages, and 2 hours later, I got an email saying, you're absolutely right, I love it. Can't put it down. And I said, oh my God, can I quote you? And she said, use this. And then she gave me the quote that appears on the front cover. So it's hard asking people to say nice things about your book. I mean, when I asked you, Ben, do you remember what you said?
No.
No, you didn't say no. You said, well, I'm not going to say something good about it if I don't like it. You said I have to read it before I can even tell you if I'm going to say anything. Right? And you said something. You did. Zandy?
When did they ask it?
2012. October 3rd, I was leaving work. I have to just set this in time. Barack Obama and Mitt Romney were about to have their first debate. Now there's a world we remember fondly, right? Even Mitt Romney. Doesn't Mitt Romney even sound good now? We'll take him. It was a long time ago.
I guess there's no way I would have heard about it. But anyway, I was glad that you recovered.
Thank you. Ben?
In your last email, you said it said you took 10 years to write this book.
Pretty much. I began writing essays, and you have to get an attorney when you get hit by a car, go figure. And the attorney told me to just write everything because I might not remember how bad the pain was or how debilitating the flashbacks were. So I started writing immediately, and most of that's not in the book, but it was really an iterative process over many, many years. I took writing classes because I'd always been a writer, but not this kind of a writer. I didn't know how to write a memoir, and it was very humbling to learn how little I knew about how to write scene and how to show, not tell, and all those things. Ben?
Yeah. Going back to the description of the accident, one of the things that knocked me out reading your galley was how specific you were about the quotes you remembered, what people said around you, hovering around you and above you and taking care of you, and the things you spotted, like the possible driver of the car that hit you. How did you come to collect all of that? What was your method? And I'm thinking, did you keep your journalist hat on somehow through the accident and remembered what Fred said to you and what you said to him? All of that.
Good question. I would say, first of all, what sears into our memories, at least in my experience, is when there's a whole lot of emotion. So, I mean, the things that I remember most vividly are things that were impactful to me. This was the most impactful thing that ever happened. I never lost consciousness. That's the good news and the bad news, right? Had I lost consciousness, it probably would have been a severe head injury. But at the same time, I remember every single moment. Time expanded and contracted in really weird ways. And I think that's pretty standard for when a human is in shock. And sometimes the way that memory works, right? You can ask two people who shared an experience 30 years ago to describe what happened, and they're each going to be absolutely convinced that their recollection is true. And on some level it is. So the things that I remember being said might not have been the things that were said, but they're what I remember. And they're what I think happened or what I think was said. Certainly, I've captured the essence, if not word for word. I was in shock physically, but more than that, I just felt like, why has not enough bad stuff happened to me? That's what I felt. I felt like, really? And when I first was working with an editor, and I kept saying this, seriously? Really? She said, well, that just doesn't sound real. And I went, no, that is exactly what I was saying. I just and then something clicked. I don't think I've shared this today, but something clicked where it was like, okay, let's do this. And that's a question that even I ask myself, where did that come from? Where did this sudden, okay, let's, like there were multiples of me, and I was going to gather all of me together and be as strong as I could be, and I'm going to, if this is what's happening, I'm going to meet this and somehow move through this. And I think in part I was drawing on the strength and the guts of my ancestors. You know, I'm the granddaughter of immigrants. Many of us are the children of immigrants, and they left somewhere for a better life and took all kinds of risks and had the confidence in themselves that they would be able to make something happen, make something better happen. And so I think that's where that came from. And then it continued during my time in the hospital, and then for the next couple of years it turned into a mantra that was, I can do this. I can do this. And I'm hoping never to forget that, because my bad stuff hasn't ended. I am in a glorious phase of life right now where I'm healthy and my loved ones are healthy and my grandchildren are growing, and I published this book and some people like it, and you know, it's a crazy, wonderful time, but this too shall pass. This too shall pass. So it's important to remember, and it's important to remember that I can do it, whatever it is.
So we know by reading this about the accident and the why and the how of it?
Well, I can tell you that I was in a crosswalk, broad daylight, car stops for me. I get just to where the sedan was, and a truck came at about 50 miles an hour, either not paying any attention or distracted or whatever, but never put his foot on the brake. So he slammed into her. Because she was a sedan, I was thrown up onto the hood. If she had been driving an SUV, I would most assuredly have been run over. And so we don't know. It was hit and run. After he told me I was fine, he got back in his car and took off. And 2 witnesses got his license plate, and they were able to track him down the next day, when he would no longer have failed a breathalyzer. And he lied, and the charge was, I think, 2 felonies. It was hit and run with major injuries. And but you know, he was a white guy in Marin, and he plea bargained, and he got 30 days in jail and 3 years probation. And I hope I haven't offended anyone by saying that, but I just don't feel that justice is meted out fairly, and somehow.
What about the car where you ended up on the hood?
So she was released from the emergency room like an hour or 2 later, but like 5 years later, she introduced herself to me at the JCC. She said, "I'm the person who hit you." I mean, it was such a crazy moment.
Never held responsible.
Oh, she was not responsible at all. No, not at all. She was rear-ended, and there was nothing she could do. She was rear-ended.
She was the one that wanted her car fixed. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, she was freaking out about her car. Yeah, and we shared an ambulance. Isn't that cozy?
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I'm happy to chat one-on-one, sign books, whatever you like. Thanks so much for coming. And thank you for these flowers.